Everyone has a gift, and mine is I'm a hell of a writer. I was best in my class, actually, but when it's 5th grade, the most I'm comparing you to is some Judy Blume bullshit. I was no Judy Blume, but I was good nonetheless, unfortunately. I don't know how I drew their attention. Maybe I dropped some unfinished classwork on the way home, I don't know. All I know is one morning I was cutting through a public park and suddenly, well, I wasn't on my path anymore. I was all turned around. The path seemed to go on, and I got scared. Well, the equivalent of what I thought was fear up until that point in my life. Desperate, I started running and screaming, calling out for someone, anyone to help me. After a point, I finally did hear someone up ahead. They were actually calling my name. Someone must have reported it when I didn't make it to school. The only problem was the damn path was coming to an end and there were thorn bushes, between me and the person calling out to me. I knew I had no choice, and I wasn't going to stay there and wait for someone to find me. Sobbing, I went to my hands and knees, scrambling my way slowly through. It didn't matter how slowly I went through, because I was cutting myself as I went along regardless. Deep. I was bleeding all over and it hurt. I don't know how to explain it. It didn't just hurt like my skin. It deeper than skin, I guess. After a certain point, I could see light pulling in through those damn thorns, but I just couldn't move anymore. Half conscious, I felt hands on me. And then someone pulling me those last few feet out of what I'd call the hedge. And when I opened my eyes, the beauty. God, I wish there were words for that beauty. But that part didn't last long, however. You see, I was a guest of the gentry, terrifying forces of madness called the True Fae, and my life here was not to remain one of luxury. After being acclimated, I was going to be set to task. And my life was very, very different. For what felt like multiple lifetimes, I was set to follow my master, a rudimentary typewriter fitted to my chest, meant to be a mobile method of jotting down her every vocalized thought. My body started to change, not just with age, but with alien purpose. My chest grew broader due to the muscle formed for carrying the ancient typewriter thing, and my fingers got impossibly long for the typing. My eyes strained with the constant focusing, and they gifted me with lenses that they implanted directly into my skull, forever attached to my new fairy form. One day, though, they made a mistake. At least I hope this was a mistake and not more of their games. And they left the gates open. With my new lenses, I could see far, and thank God for that. My master had drawn a bath, and this was one of those few moments of respite I had. I fled, and my ass was past that gate faster than you could say Bowie's codpiece. I saw those nasty thorns up ahead, and I heard barking from behind me. A huntsman. I didn't care. This was worth the risk. Throwing myself at the hedge, I clawed and kicked, pushing myself through. It took what felt like forever, but eventually I was out. I smelled familiar air from a lifetime ago, and I wondered exactly how long had I been away. Then one final kick in the crotch. I turned, looking around, when I saw a blue backpack, my backpack, disappear into the hedge just the way I had come moments before. Just then, something was tossed over the wall of thorns. It was a scarecrow-looking thing. For a moment it just lay there, but then a freakishly long limb, the limb of my master, stretched out and dropped what looked like a lock of my hair onto the thing, and it sprang to life. It stopped looking like a scarecrow, and it began looking exactly like me. And humming a tune I didn't know, it turned and began walking down the path I had come, both so long ago and so recently. Eyes narrowed, I began following it. If I can't have my old life back, nobody can. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Botch Pit. This time around, we're covering a very interesting game, Changeling the Lost 2nd Edition. It's funny, because for as much as I didn't care for Changeling the Dreaming, I think this iteration of Changeling is cool as hell. You play as a Fae, or Changeling, and you were once a normal person, with normal person dreams and goals, until it was stolen away by the True Fae, also known as the Gentry. Sometimes they took you for a very specific reason. Perhaps you're an amazing sculptor, or painter, or mechanic, who knows? The thing is with the True Fae, they are wholly and completely alien in the way they think. Maybe they liked your eyes, or there's something special in your bloodline. Perhaps they just like your taste in cartoons. It could be anything, and that's what's kind of the thing that makes them so terrifying. You just can't conceive the way they think. Now, the other half of the terror there is where they take their quote-unquote guess. The land of Arcadia. It's a place of immense beauty, and like the Gentry themselves, it's also a place of great madness. It's both fluid and static, in some places changing constantly like the minds of the Gentry themselves, and in others never ever changing. Regardless, even if the beauty and seemingly caring disposition of the True Fae may intoxicate for a time, eventually, the truly insane nature of the Gentry will make itself known. When that time comes, well, some are lucky enough to have the sanity to plot out an escape, and even more lucky if they get to make it work. They flee Arcadia, and once more, if luck comes into play, or if it's some sadistic game of the true Fae, they make it out. However, nobody makes it out clean. Let's talk different reasons and ways this whole series of events changes you and about the aftershocks. Let's begin with the hedge. The hedge is both a barrier and a doorway into the land of Arcadia, but it is not a welcoming method of entry whatsoever. See, this hedge is made up of thorns, but they're not conventional flora. These thorns tear at your mind, body, and soul. Nobody comes through unscathed, or even completely sane, and this begins the transformation into a changeling, or Fae. Again, very different from the true Fae, which are their hosts. Once through, you will eventually end up in the hands of the gentry who brought you there, almost guaranteed. Once that happens, well, they put you to whatever abstract purpose they brought you here for. Maybe you're painting them art, maybe you are the art, or playing violin for them. Perhaps they have a wobbly table and you're to be changed into an old novel to place under the leg to balance it. Who knows? In any case, you belong to them. If you try to escape, you'll often end up on the receiving end of a hunt. The huntsmen take to pursuit, and they very, very rarely miss the target. If it seems like I'm being a little vague with the huntsmen here, this is already a longer guide than I planned on it being, and with 2nd edition, there's actually a whole chronicle inside of the book dedicated to the huntsmen, so we will get more in depth with the following guide. As you guys saw, I did make a 2nd mage guide already, so I am starting the follow-up of some of the guides I've already done. I have not forgotten Promethean, I have not forgotten Beast or Mummy. It's just, I'm kind of sticking with what's pulling me in a direction right now and what's trending. So, with that said, let's get back to it. One wonders that when you escape the hunt of the huntsman, if it's ever a mistake, or if the gentry just enjoy watching their former little worker ants get hunted down and brought back to their torturous fate. Regardless, upon their escape, they're not done with getting their lives back. Not hardly. See, time is very fluid in Arcadia, and rare is the time that you come back seeming the same age as when you left. You may have come back looking 10 years older, or even 10 years younger or more. As said, rules aren't concrete in Arcadia, and that's especially true for biology. To make things worse, even if you find your way home, our unfortunate changeling is going to be quite surprised to find that someone else is already living their better life. They are. Well, not really them, but something called a fetch. A fetch is it's not a person, but a thing made up of whatever was lying around. Ragtag stitched together, composed of hair, rags, coal for eyes, whatever, teeth. It's just bullshit stuck together, but then given artificial life by the gentry as to not arouse suspicion that you've gone missing in the first place. To make things worse, oftentimes that facsimile is a better you than you. They get along better with people, get good grades, and get that promotion you've been going for at work. Often they have no idea that they're not even real themselves. How do you go about fixing this situation when you likely don't even look like you anymore? This is one major problem the Changeling have, all while ducking the forces of Arcadia, likely set to reclaim the gentry's toys. The Huntsmen again. These hunters come in many forms, but almost every time their goal is the same. Bring back the Changeling and teach them that escape is not an option. All this said, let's get into some of the different types or seemings of the Changelings. These are what your Changeling is biologically changed to in the lands of Arcadia. First, the Beast. In the lands of Arcadia, that little spark that made you human got stomped out and it was replaced with a savage soul. Run, kill, obey. These are the tenets you were taught to live by as they kept you in kennel and cage, and you learned to survive and to hunt. Darkling. Sensory creatures of all but sight. These are the ones that hunted curiosities for their keepers or slinks off into the night to spy on the gentry, or the people the gentry wished to spy on. The Elementals. Perhaps when you went to Arcadia, you were fire or a breeze. Either way, you were a being of brilliant force. You didn't escape in the night. You likely escaped in a blaze of glory. The Fairest. Pampered and favored, you lived a life of seeming luxury in the lands of Arcadia. But that's not a good thing in Arcadia. Perhaps you were a literal living work of art, or a model for sculpting, only given a mouth when they wanted you to thank them for all the gifts they gave you. Ogres. Thugs bred to have mercy removed, they charged into battle, or servitude, like a giant. You were meant to be a terror, but that doesn't mean that's what you wanted to be. The Wizened. The worker bees of the gentry, these were the contract writers, watchmakers, and white-collar slaves of the true Fae. Who better to work on the contracts? So those are the different basic type of changelings. I'm sure there's all sorts of different types that I haven't gotten dug into, but that's what's in the core. And that's not where, their family units are. It's more like their breed. When it comes to their family, sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you're born with. So once these refugees get onto the other side, they find that they have a preference, a need really, to stick together and bond with others of their kind. Sometimes to hide from the gentry, and sometimes to take the fight to them. Regardless, to remain alone as a changeling is akin to embracing madness and handing yourself right to the closest huntsman. These united fronts, called courts, are as followed. And again, this is very abridged as I'm going to be going into them one at a time in further guides. You have the Spring Court, which is ruled by desire and the emotions behind it. These changeling understand that hunger is an embracing of your needs, and it's a driving force. The Summer Court, the court dominated by wrath, they understand that wrath is the rejection of being abused, of being the victim. They took enough abuse, and damned if they'll take any more. The Autumn Court, this court is driven by fear. Not that they're afraid, but understanding how fear is such a useful tool, and if the true Fae can really use that as a way to keep you in servitude, what can you accomplish in this mortal world? The Winter Court is the court represented by sorrow. They understand the pain they went through and use it as a tool to learn and to embrace patience. They're not cowards. They just wait until the time is right to strike. So those are the courts, and then after that you have kiths, which are kind of like the bloodlines to vampire or legacies to mage. Definitely, like most of this badass book, something to be driven into in another of the guides that I'll have up for this. I think this is probably going to be my third major focus from the Chronicles of Darkness, because this is a really, really cool book. And again, we're going to be diving into all this. It's huge. There's so much to it. The Changeling have many tricks up their sleeves. They use contracts with careful wording as they gain power from them getting broken. They actually want to trick you, like, Hansel and Gretel, all those sort of tales of being wise and paying attention to what you say and what you promise, because they gain their power back by tricking you with wordplay into screwing up your own contracts. They get power from that. They also make potions, enchanted items, a lot of that stuff. However, as this guide was meant for the lore, and that's been covered, I'll be making the extended guides to their abilities very soon, as well as talking about those touched by the hedge, because there are people that manage to brush up against those thorns but not become one of the Fae. I look forward to it, as this content was even way richer than I expected it to be. This is a really cool book with a lot of stuff to it, and I highly recommend getting it and picking up the second edition. Even if you have the first, it seems like with all these second edition books, they're really tweaking and adding so much to them that really make the games more enriching experiences. Like, I'm going through Mage now, and I'm seeing so many different ways of casting as opposed to first edition, which is far closer to Ascension. And it seems like with the contracts and the word and the weird, however you phrase it, and the potions and the goblin markets and all the stuff that Changeling has, you're really missing out if you're using these guides as a substitute for the books, because they are not. This is to help you get acclimated to the books. So, as always, don't forget to subscribe and like, share with your players or storytellers, whoever's not listening to this. If we're helping you, please spread the word. We're almost at 200 subscribers, which is nuts to me. We really appreciate you all. Thank you. This is Chris from the Pit. Have a great day or night or whatever, wherever you are. Have a great. Thanks.